Hey everybody, it's Norm and Will back for a very special edition of Behind the Garage Door. Well, it's special to me anyway. It's our 39th episode in the season finale of season 3, and we are headed to Tampa to see what's behind my garage door. You're late. All right, so we've made it out to my house here in Tampa, and this is kind of weird, but I think this is going to be fun because this is episode 39, the end of our third season. Will and I have done all these together, and he's never been to my house. So welcome to my house, Will. So I figured we would start with the car that started me in being into cars and everything else, and that is this 1940 Ford Standard Opera Coupe. And there's a standard 40 Coupe and a deluxe 40 Coupe, and this is the standard one. Different grille, different hood, a couple of things with the dash make it different than the standard. And it's an Opera Coupe because in the back, instead of having like a regular back seat or whatever, it's got these little fold down seats like you'd come into a theater or whatever, so Opera Coupe. The summer of 1975, my dad drug this car home behind an old Ford 500 or something like that. I don't even remember what he was driving. He found it in Miamisburg, Ohio, sitting outside. The guy had 3 of them. This was the nicest one of the 3. One was being customized. One was in way worse shape than this one. So this is the one he brought home. And for the next 5 years or so, keep in mind, 1975, I'm 5 years old. So we pushed this thing into the garage. Or I pushed, I guess. He probably did most of the work. And we took the front end off, took the hood off, took the fenders off, and rear fenders, deck lid, and ended up taking the body off of the frame and hanging it from the rafters in the garage. And it was like that for quite a while because it was a total frame off restoration at the time, and it was a lot of work. And then I remember spring of probably 78 or something like that, we got the frame of the car sitting out in the driveway. And this is no joke. My dad actually bolted the steering wheel onto the steering column, grabbed a milk crate and hooked up the throttle with a coat hanger and drove the frame around the block, just like that. I always thought that was kind of a funny story. So anyway, I think if memory serves, now granted, remember at this point I'm 8, 9, 10, it came all together pretty quick after that. So it was painted in probably 79, and the original color was 1973 Cadillac Viridian Fire Mist Green. It was kind of a candy green. And then the interior was done by a guy named Bob Lyons around that same time. In a nutshell, the car was pretty much finished up about 1980. So it took about 5 years for it to get to that state. Flathead, the original flathead in it, single 2-barrel, 3 on the tree, stock running suspension, everything else. And it stayed in that configuration for years, for a really long time. My dad and I went to every car show you could think of. If there was a car show, he and I were at it, and cruise-ins and all this other stuff. And it started to get to a point, honestly, to be honest with you, there's a lot of questions were asked. And thank you, by the way, for all the people that asked all the questions. It does have a Chevy drivetrain in it now. Small block Chevy 350 turbo, and a 10-bolt rear end out of a Nova. So, but the flathead, I wish it was still in there, but the flathead is kind of a catch-22 because you want to go out and go cruising unless you've got a flathead from H&H that you paid $30,000 for, which I would like to do one day. Water pump goes out in a flathead. You're not going to pull over to Napa and get a water pump for a flathead. So we wanted to drive it. We wanted to enjoy it. We wanted to go further, further different places. And it seemed like the logical move at the time, and we did. Drove it all over the place. But prior to putting the Chevy drivetrain in and everything, we did a lot of indoor car shows. Being from up north, a lot of people that live down here in Florida and other places in the South, up north during the wintertime you do indoor car shows. So we did the Carl Casper's car show at Hare Arena, Cavalcade of Customs at the Dayton Convention Center, I think one year. I think we did one in Cincinnati at some point. So we did a lot of those as well with the flathead, and it was all chromed out at that point too, with like thinned aluminum heads and 2 deuces and chrome here and chrome there and everything else. And it was a really, really, really cool show car at that point. So drivetrain gets switched. We drive it all over the place. We have fun. Then I graduate and you know, life just kind of takes over, and that's kind of where it was at that point for a long time. So fast forward to 2000, and I moved down here to Florida from Ohio, and this car obviously has been a constant with me for, you know, 7 years at this point. This car has always been in my life. And my dad calls me and he goes, so I'm assuming you realize that, you know, when I kick the bucket, you're going to inherit the 40. And I'm like, sweet, okay, cool. Don't want you to go anywhere, but sweet. He goes, I'm going to do some body work on it. What do you want it to look like when you get it? First thing that came to my mind, matte black and flamed. Because a 40 Ford Coupe like this is just the pinnacle for me. I just think that it's the absolute coolest thing. 40 Ford to me is the coolest old hot rod. I mean, 32 Ford you can't go wrong with, but 40 Ford Coupe is my absolute favorite. So when we originally built the car, there was a lot of, you know, shortcuts that were made with some of the body work and everything else. So he tore it all the way back down to metal, fixed the things that we kind of didn't do 100% right back then. And then I think he said he painted it 3 or 4 times, because when you paint something like this and you reduce it, and this is not a wrap, sometimes you get tiger stripes. So you paint it, and you get it out in the sun and there's stripes all over the place. So it took several times for him to get it right. Then he had a guy named Chad Bowling up in Ohio flame it. And it was my idea to do the green flames because the interior is green and I didn't want to change out the interior. So we just kind of made the flames match the interior. And what, the interior is one of those things, ever since my dad had this done, people would come up to this car and look inside and go, oh, or wow. It's a love it or hate it interior, and I absolutely love it. That's why I didn't want him to change anything at all. So he paints it, he flames it, he enjoys it for a little bit, but he also has a 1956 Ford that he built, totally custom, slammed, lake pipes, 292 tri-power. My mom did the interior. Such a sweet car. And when you have a car like that and you've had this other car that you've had for, you know, 20, 30 years or whatever it was at that point, you kind of lose interest. So the old 40 just kind of sat for the next 10 years until he decided one day that, you know what, while I'm still here, I want to enjoy this car so I can see you enjoy it. So he had it shipped. I've got it, I think it's been here like 6 months. So I have already put more miles on this car in the past 6 months or whatever it's been than it had in the last 15 years. So that's kind of what the backstory of this car. Thanks, Dad. And yeah. Okay, so now on to the 79 Camaro. About the same time my dad and I were working on the 40 Ford, I think it was either, I'm almost positive it was 79. This guy down the street from us got a red 79 Z28 for either a 16th birthday present or graduation or something like that. It was red with the gold Z28 stripes, and he did the whole day 2, what we refer to day 2 now, treatment to it. Kragers, air shocks, slapper bars, and it had T-tops. And I saw that car and I was like, that is the coolest thing I've ever seen in my life. I have to have one. I'm 9 at this point. So fast forward 10 years later, I'm driving through a town called Lebanon, Ohio, and I'm driving past this Lincoln Mercury dealer. And on one of those ramps off in the corner of the lot is this car. And I saw it, and it was everything that I wanted. My favorite color. It was a 79. It had to be a 79. So I go in and I ask the guy, I'm like, hey, mister, keep in mind I'm 18 or 19 at this point. And I go, I want to buy that Camaro, and I think they're asking like $5 grand for it or something like that. And I go, is there any wiggle room on the price? And he goes, hell no, kid, that's a hot car. We'll get every dime out of that. We'll get all that $5,000. I'm like, so there's no way? He's like, nope. I'm like, all right. So I go home, and I don't remember exactly how I pulled this off. But I got all my insurance money because I had to pay for my own insurance, own upkeep, own gas on all my cars, even from the time I was 16, 15 on. I think I'd sold a few things or whatever else. I ended up with $2,500 cash in my pocket. I still to this day don't remember exactly how I did it. So I go back up there. It was Groundhog Day, 1989, February 2nd, 1989. And I go back up to the dealership and I walk inside and I go, are you sure there's no wiggle room on that car? Nope, nope. We'll get $5,000 for that car all day long, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, I have $2,500 cash in my pocket, and I need that car. I have to have that car. And the guy goes, let's go do some paperwork. And that's how I ended up with the car. That night I drove home. I didn't tell my parents about this or anything. I drove home. It's February in Ohio. It's not cold enough to snow, but it's raining like 35 degrees. Bald tires, T-tops leaking, the seat's frozen, my butt is frozen, and I could not get the smile off of my face. I had my dream car and I was driving home in it. So this is my senior year of high school, and it was the last half of my senior year of high school. And I was so just madly in love with this car, and it was everything that I ever wanted. And yes, the T-tops leaked, and was it the fastest thing in town? No, but it was cool. It had T-tops, it was a Z28, and it had Krager SSTs and fat tires, and it was just the best. So I drive it through high school, I drive it through college. I traded for a lifted 79 Blazer at one point, and the guy and I that I traded with decided to trade back. And the only thing that was different with the car when I got it back was he had taken the SSTs off of it and put the Z28 wheels. So now I've got a job where I have to like drive further distances off, you know, a lot. And this car obviously wasn't going to do it. It was starting to, you know, show its age, starting to act its age, and suck down the gas. And I wasn't making a lot of money. So my dad was nice enough to let me park it in his barn and just let it sit. So that's what we did. And he started a mild restoration on it. I shouldn't say a mild restoration. Hell, he took it down to bare metal. Took nose off, took the engine out, took the transmission out. Interior was gone, but it went down to bare metal, and it kind of sat like that for, you know, I don't even know how long, probably 8-9 years. And then I had it shipped down here in the early 2000s, maybe 2004 or so. Had it painted, and then it kind of sat for a little while longer. And then I meet Steve Hurley, who obviously is our boss and owns Stingray Chevrolet. And he and I hit it off immediately because we're, you know, two car guys. You know, you can just start talking about cars. And anyway, I'm not going to give all the details, but if it wasn't for Steve Hurley and the help that he gave me getting this car back on the road, I would not be enjoying this. So Steve, I cannot thank you enough for all the help that you did. Like I said, the only thing that was done was it was painted, but he helped me out with an engine. He helped me out with some other things, brake lines and fuel lines, and you know, helped out with the interior and a bunch of other stuff. And I just can't thank him enough. So now I've got my car back, and then all I have to do is start just piecing the rest of the things together, and that's kind of where this car is now. Okay, so now I want to answer the questions that all of you guys sent in, either Facebook, Instagram, or however else you found our questions. And by the way, thank you so much for showing the interest, and these are some really, really good questions. I really, really appreciate that. It made me feel good. Bill Rushmore, first question with both cars, what's under the hood? Well, I kind of covered this one. It's basically a stock Chevy 350. It's got a mild cam in it, but other than that, it's pretty much bone stock. The Camaro is a GM Performance Parts block, crank, pistons, nothing really all that major. It originally started as one of the 350, 290 horse Chevy small blocks, but now it's got a comp XE268 cam, Brodix heads, Edelbrock air gap intake, Holley Sniper fuel injection, Flowtech headers, and Flowmaster Thunder Series exhaust. I think that's everything on that one. Sean Roberts, what did your dad change about the 40 after he bought it? Honestly, the body itself, this is all original Henry steel. So as you see it, the body was really not changed. I mean, it was customized with the paint. The flathead was customized, and obviously the interior and stuff. But as far as the car goes itself, all the body and everything, it's as it was. Also, was the Camaro your first car? No, actually the Camaro was my fourth car, third and a half car. I kind of started with a 66 Impala. That's what I learned how to drive on, and I remember my parents saying it was no power steering, no power brakes, 66 Impala, 327, 300 horse, 3 on the tree. And they said, if you can drive this, you can drive anything. So that's the car I learned how to drive on. So after that, it was a 1976 Malibu. Then I think it was like an 83 S10, and I sold that, and that's when I got the Camaro. So call it my third car. Lee Tompkins, how long from start to finish was the rebuild of the coupe? About 5 years, to the point where we started enjoying it and taking it to car shows from 75 to about 80. And the only reason I remember that is our very first car show we ever went to was at the Dayton Mall in Dayton, Ohio, and we took second place, and the trophy says 1980 on it. What metal band has been played the most in the Camaro? Well, that's Metallica. And the reason being is when I was driving this car the most was right about the time that the Black Album came out, and the way the Black Album was EQ'd, it sounded best. And yes, I did have to put a matchbook underneath it to get to the clean part of the head to make it sound good. I'm sure some of you guys will know what I'm talking about. Jay Stevie, how bad was the body on the Camaro from its Ohio life when you had it repainted? Actually, my dad we only had to replace, the only metal that was actually ever replaced in it was where your feet sit down in the floor pan, because the T-tops leak straight down the A-pillar, straight into the floor, and all of them. You have to replace that piece of metal. And the only other metal that got replaced was the corners of the metal part of the dash in front of the dash pad. Both those corners had to be replaced, but it's actually showing more rust now than it ever has. So it's probably from the moisture here in Florida. Was it a 350 car originally? Yes, it was. Z28s came with 350s. Where did I buy it? I covered that. The Ford dealership in Lebanon, Ohio. Why did your dad pick the 44 and over, say, a 55 Chevy when he first got it? That's a good question. And I asked him this to get the answer. When he was younger, a buddy of his had a 40 Ford sedan. And they would go around to, cruise that car all the time, go to the drive-in, hang out, pick up chicks. Although I think he's been with my mom since 3rd grade, so he's probably not picking up chicks. Otherwise, she'd kill him. But they spent a lot of time in that car, and that's when he became, obsessed with 40 Fords. But he did not want a sedan, he wanted a coupe, so here you go, the coupe. Thank you, Jay. Forrest, how involved were you with the paint job on the coupe? My only involvement with the paint job on the coupe was picking the colors. Obviously, it was painted in Ohio. I was in Florida, so I picked the matte black and the flames, and that's about as far as that goes. Which one is my favorite? I would say only because of seniority, the 40. Actually, honestly, you see a lot of second-gen Camaros, but you don't see a whole lot of 79 Z28s anymore for some reason. So you don't see a lot of those, but you see a lot less of these, especially ones that are old school, show old school like this. A lot of them are cut up and, whatever they've done to it and put billet this and whatever that and all that stuff. So I like the way that this car was done and how it sits right now with kind of the old school flavor on it. And if I had to sell one, which would it be? I couldn't. If I sold one, I could never get them back. The stories on both of these cars are so good. There's not a price. There's just literally not a price. I wouldn't sell either one of them. Kevin, didn't you have a Chevelle in high school? Yes, the 76 Malibu. I had it before the S10 and then I drove the Camaro. Josh, is it the original paint on the Camaro? No. Originally, that car was light blue with dark blue stripes when it was originally bought in 79. And actually, it was a girl's 16th birthday present. A girl had it first. She sold it to a guy who had it for that long, and he got in a car wreck in another car, and he couldn't get in and out of it anymore. So he traded it to that Ford dealership for a Ranger that he could get in and out of better. And he didn't have it for very long at all, so I kind of consider myself the second owner of that car. But then when I got it, it was dark blue with light blue stripes, and now it's a different blue. What engine is the 40? 350. Is the Camaro a real Z28? Yes, it is. And Mike, who is your go-to mechanic and auto body for the Camaro? My go-to mechanic now and for the foreseeable future is my friend Aaron Lindquist, who actually works with us at Stingray Chevrolet. That guy, top to bottom, it doesn't matter if it's this car, that car, those jet skis, a four-wheeler, a lawnmower, a brand new car, that guy can fix and work on anything. And I've been so impressed with his mechanic ability, I wouldn't let anybody else touch either one of them now. And as far as auto body goes, there's a place in Drew Park here in Tampa called Crucial Colors. George owns it. He's the one that painted the Camaro first. And actually, I needed to take it back to him and have him repaint it again, and I wouldn't let anybody else paint it. And finally, Hunter, favorite memory in the Camaro. That took me a while to figure out, because I drove it. I mean, there's obviously great memories in high school and great memories in college, but honestly, my best memory of it was when we got the engine, transmission, and everything in it when it was out in Plant City at Stingray, and I drove it for the first time. I want to say that was like, it was like 2015, 2014, 2015. I hadn't driven it since 1996. That was the last time it was registered. And actually, it may have even been before that I drove it, because it was just registered. I think it was more like 93 that I had driven it. So it had been 20 years since I drove it. And I drove it back from Plant City to here in Tampa with no license plate, no insurance, no rear view mirrors, no glass. And I couldn't have been happier. Actually, I had a Hillsborough County Sheriff pull up next to me and give me a thumbs up and kept on going. Anyway, that is the story of my 79 Camaro Z28 and my 1940 Ford Coupe. And thank you so much for watching. We're going to head back to the dealership and wrap it up. All right, well, that was fun. I hope you guys found that entertaining. I know that I love answering questions about my cars, just like all the other people that I've ever been on Behind the Garage Door enjoyed as well. Remember, if you have a car, or you've got a collection of cars, or you know somebody that has some cool stuff, reach out to us either on Instagram or Facebook, our YouTube channel, TikTok, wherever you want to get a hold of us. Let us know where those cars are, who those people are, who you are. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Hope everybody enjoys their time off and you're thankful as all of us here at Stingray are. Make sure you keep an eye out for season 4 of Behind the Garage Door.
Stingray Chevrolet, relax, enjoy the day.